Hello, so this is our replacement class, the recorded lesson for the first week of December to replace the first class of the month. Okay, so I'm actually going to be overseas. I'm going to be away, not in Malaysia. So we will have this class as a recorded class. Okay, so today's lesson is actually about bad or good pieces, right? So we are going to focus on the bishops today, right? We're going to look at which bishop is good, which bishop is bad, and also we're going to focus on how to make them good. Okay, so I want you to first learn how to identify which bishop is better than the other, right? So which bishop is the good one and which bishop is the bad one, right? So part one, as you can see on the top right, is bishop's part one. So I want you to look at this position now on the board. Okay, we have the white bishop on g2 and also the black bishop on e6. Okay, I want you to take some time and guess, not really guess, but identify which is the better bishop, right? So when trying to determine which is the better bishop, you have to look at the pawns, right? How many squares can the bishop move, right? So let's say we are playing black. Are we better than um, the opponent's bishop, right? Is our bishop better than the opponent's bishop? Okay, so I'm going to give you the answer now. If you want to try it yourself, you can pause the video for a while, take your time, and just look at the position first. Okay, this is already an end game, so I think it's much easier to realize which bishop is stronger. Okay, so the first way and the easiest way actually to find out which bishop is stronger is you have to look at the pawns, right? Which pawns are your own pawns or their own pawns on. Okay, so if I look at my position, if I'm playing black, let's say I'm playing black, my pawns are on one, two, three, four, five, six. Six of them are on dark squares. Only one is on the light square. I can just play something like this, and all of my pawns will be on dark squares. Okay, so when you realize all of the pawns are on dark squares, which means my bishop, a light square bishop, can go through all of the dark squares. So you can go through all of the in between the dark squares or the light squares. Okay, so this is the easiest way to know which is the stronger bishop, right? If you look on the other side for white, right? White has a light square bishop, and all of his pawns or her pawns are all on white squares, light squares, right? So now you realize that the bishop just can't move. The bishop cannot move anywhere except like these three squares. Okay, maybe he can do something weird or dumb, like king back, and then the bishop can walk around a little bit more. Okay, right? But that's all, right? So one, two, three, four, five squares only for the bishop. Six, sorry, six squares for the bishop only. Okay, so but if we look for our bishop, right? Let's say our bishop. Okay, our bishop, the black bishop. Okay, it can go to a lot of squares. So one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight. Where else? If we push this forward, there will be 9, 10, 11, and 12. The square it's sitting on, right? And also, we can also, right? We can also try to break the pawn structure. For example, we could play something like a6, b5. And now if it takes, we will get to take here, and then we can slowly try to push open. Right? Maybe that's not the best option for us yet. Okay. But something that can happen in the game is like this. Let's say our opponent just plays bishop f3, just sort of blocking our pawn, right? So okay, maybe that's a good move. Okay, right? But here, okay, here we can play something like pawn to g5, like we mentioned just now, right? Just stopping the pawns from going forward anytime, at any time. Okay, and this will be great for us because once again, our pawns are on dark squares and our bishop is on light squares. It's a light square bishop, right? So here, for example, if we play something random like this, I'm just going to play a random move. Okay, um, our bishop can go to d7, and now we can prepare something like this. Okay, right? Or there is another way to play this. So I'll show it to you, right? So for example, if he goes king to c1, we can actually play the move pawn to c4. Okay, so you'd be like, what does pawn to c4 do? It's defended by two pawns. So something that can happen is pawn takes and bishop takes. And now you see this is sort of like an imbalanced position, not balanced. Okay, so something that can happen is just bishop back, a5, a4, a3, a2, a1 queen. Okay, of course you have to bring your king over lah. Okay, right? So that's one idea. So other than that, okay, let's look at another way. Like let's say, for example, let's say you push the pawn and he takes this way, right? Okay, maybe this looks a little bit weird, okay, but something that we can do is something like a6, right? Okay, and let's say you play something random, we can start to play like this. So takes, and take back, and now our bishop becomes way more active. Now he has to play something like this, which looks very weird because we just play this, and now the pawn is falling. So he just can't gut this pawn and gut this pawn. Okay, right. Okay, right. So that was for part one, right? I think you can identify already which bishop is the better one, right? It's very obvious that this is a stronger bishop. Okay, there's something wrong with my Windows. Can I just off it? Yeah, I'm just gonna close it first. Right. Okay, never mind. Right, so here we're gonna move on to part two. Okay, part two we have this position. Okay, right. Now I want you to identify which is the better bishop. Right, in some cases, right? In some cases, the bishops are both equally bad or equally good or just meh or just there. Right? Sometimes it can be just like that. Like there's no one better than each other. Right? So here in this position, we will take a look at the black's bishop first. Black's bishop is a dark square bishop. The pawns are mostly on light squares, three and only two on dark squares. And we also have a very clear queen side. There aren't any pawns here, right? So we can actually just freely move around if we just move the rook, correct? If we move the rook somewhere, then our bishop can go like here, 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 anywhere. Correct. Okay, right? So, okay, let's look at white's bishop now. Okay, the pawns are on light squares, mostly, yeah, same thing, just almost exactly the same as black. Three on light squares, two on dark squares. And also, the queen side is a little bit empty. Okay, but for white, I would say maybe the king side is more empty for him because here it's dominated by our pieces. Maybe we can play something like this. Okay, right? So here in this position, it's best for black to activate his bishop, but it's good for white to try to trade off the bishop. Okay, so for example, here I can play rook b8, and the best move for white is actually to trade off the bishop. Because if you allow the bishop to come and attack your rooks and everything, it's gonna be a little bit difficult to hold the position. Okay, so here, let's say your opponent plays king g3. Now we can play bishop d8, and he is not in time, right? He's not in time because now we can just run away, right? Just now we cannot run away because it's his move, and now it's our move to respond, and we just can only go to some weird square like this, which is very very passive lah. Okay, right? So here, after this, we play something like this, bishop to a5, attacking the rook. And if he plays rook to c1, defending the pawn one more time, we can already play something like this. Okay, so there's double attack on this pawn. Um, of course, he has two defenders, but slowly but surely, we can slowly bring our knight up like this. Okay, I'll show it to you. For example, let's just play some random moves. Of course, your opponent won't just move the king back and forth, but here's something that can happen. Something like, oops, something like this. Okay, now you're going to win the pawn probably. Okay, right? Okay, but not so soon. Before this, you have to play bishop to c3 first. Why? Because if you play like this, he's going to play this. Okay, no, wait, he can't just play that. Sorry, the rook is hanging. Okay, yeah. So it's no problem. I was thinking if he played this, then we take that he just win back the pawn. But obviously, his rook is hanging. Okay, his rook is hanging. Okay, so here, this is one way the pawn can the pawn can fall out. So of course, he can just defend it. But yeah, you get what I mean, right? We can play something like this. Okay, this is getting a little bit tougher, right? Something like this is a crazy move. For example, you take here, and you take it back, you hang your rook again, right? So basically, there is a pin along this rank, okay? Right, so that is one way to activate your bishop, okay? Okay, right. Now we're gonna go back. We're gonna go back to this position, right? So why should black no why should white trade the bishop? Okay, so for example, if you trade the bishops, you will realize that these knights, okay, aren't as scary as the bishops, right? The bishops on open lines, like so many open lines for the bishop to move around, is going to be a very scary endgame, right? Something that can happen is something like this just for the knights. We can play something like this, of course, the same thing, but something like this, and everything becomes very passive again. Okay, so if you look at a computer, right, earlier on it would say it's a draw lah. Okay, now of course it's not very winning for us. Okay, because we must avoid the bishop trade. Okay, so for example, something like this. Right, let's say it takes, right, we have to play something pretty passive. Like of course we can go here, but yeah, maybe 94, and yeah, it's still pretty equal. Okay, still very equal. Okay, so that is why we have to trade off the bishop. If we don't trade off the bishop, let's say it's like what happened in the game just now. Let's see. Okay, king g3, and then we play this. Okay, now this is a little bit more active for black. Okay, it's a little bit more active for black, and this bishop isn't really hitting any piece actually. Okay, all right. So now we go to the last part. Last part is part 3, where we will be having, okay, we'll be having a very early game, just an opening, okay, where the pawns are already moved a little bit only, right, and the pieces are all out except for white's pieces a little bit. The bishop is usually developed quite late, but it's okay, right? So here I want you to take a look at this bishop first. Okay, this bishop isn't really well placed yet. Okay, of course it's actually very well placed, right? It's actually very well placed because it's kind of um, saying that, oh, if you're going to push any pawns later, then my bishop gets active, right? So it's not like it's his own pawn, right? It's our pawn that we are sort of stopped to push the pawn, right? We are like, oh, if I move my pawns, then his bishop will become a little bit more stronger. Okay, right? So it's still okay. He can even play something like bishop a5, but not necessary. Okay. So how about this bishop? This bishop, of course, we know this is a very good bishop because of the pin, right? It's doing very well, and it has a lot of squares it can go to. It can go here, it can target this square, these lines, can go back here, can go back here, can go back anywhere it wants, right? So very good bishop as well. So let's look at our bishop. Let's say we are playing with white. Of course, our bad bishop is kind of obvious. It's just stuck there. Okay. But we have a very good bishop as well, lah. Right? This bishop is quite good, right? But you will realize that now that he has castle, right, there is no more use for this bishop here. If you want to take the knight, of course you can, right? For example, let's say he plays something like this. If you take, of course, it looks like, oh, you made a double pawn and everything. But of course, he can just ignore you and play something like c5 later to just trade off your pawns and just get back his nice structure after this. Okay, right? So it's still fine for him. It's not that you're totally winning or anything, okay? Right? But this bishop, right, has other ways to be activated, right? I'll show you exactly how, right? So this is one way, another way to activate the bishop. See, yeah? Okay, pawn to a6, kicking our bishop away, right? For those who have learned the Ruy Lopez before, I've taught you this is called the Morphy's defense, right? And here we play the move bishop f1. Okay, this is a grandmaster-esque move. Okay, so grandmasters always find this style of move. Looks very passive. Of course, it looks very passive, but you will follow up with this. Let's say he plays d5, right? Just sort of blocking our pawns, so that we find it very hard to push the pawns forward, lah. Okay, so now we can't really push it forward, or maybe we can, sorry, because the rook is on the queen, but later on maybe, right? It's just sort of stopping some movements of our pawn, lah, and also our knight. Okay, now he's probably planning of just jumping his knight here, and if we take his pawns will be blocking our e pawn from moving. For example, I will show it to you if you can't visualize it. Let's say I play something like, maybe not something so aggressive, something like this. Okay, and we lose our knight because of the pin. We just can't move. We move, we lose our queen. So the only way to defend is probably something like this. So something like this. Up, he will win a pawn. Okay, and that's all. Okay, right? So actually not win a pawn, we still got his pawn back. Yeah, okay, so here that's one idea that black is trying to implement, right? But here we can play something like queen c2, right? Queen c2 is just a developing move, and also removing the pin. That's number one. Okay, and here if our opponent plays something like rook f to e8, okay, I think my camera just froze. I will turn it off because usually it just can't be fixed anymore. So let's just leave it like that for now. Okay, so here, right? So here, if he plays rook f to e8, right? I'm going to play the move pawn to b4 to activate the other bishop this way. Of course, you would say that, oh, it's kind of stuck, right? But it is actually not really stuck. I'll show it to you. Okay, something like this, bishop e2. And now if we place this, of course, we just avoid this bishop. And something that can happen, right? In the game, let's say you play something random like this, we can already start pushing the pawn soon. Okay, so we can start pushing the pawns later, not now. Now we do not have enough defenders. So if we calculate only 1 and 2, he has 1, 2, 3, 4. So of course we are not ready yet. But you realize that this bishop here is actually doing a very good job of protecting the pawn. Because if you want to push the pawn, you realize that you're no longer guarding this pawn. Correct? Right? You're no longer guarding this pawn and this pawn will fall. Okay, and also with tempo lah. Okay, so this bishop is actually doing something, just that it's not ready to fight yet. Okay, it's just not there yet. Okay, so let's say something like this can be done for this bishop. Now let's look what we can do with this pawn. What we can do with this bishop. Okay, so if we place h6, we can play something like g3. And now you realize where this is going. We are totally rerouting our whole bishop to another diagonal, and we are getting a monster bishop, right? This is a sort of like a grandmaster way to play. Okay, let's say he just tucks his bishop just to protect it from any knight h4 attacks, right? We can play bishop g7, bishop g2, sorry, right? And then this will be the position that we are having. And now you see this is a very nice position to play. Okay, of course it's a little bit drawish, right? Even from the start, it's already drawish, so no worries. So we have been playing the best moves. Okay, maybe almost the best moves, but mostly best moves. Okay, and now you realize that your pieces are more active and more ready to fight. Okay, so even this bishop is already doing something. Okay, right? So that was a lesson on bishops, right? We will move into other pieces in the future. Okay, but for now, we are just going to look at our bishops and how to determine which bishop is good bishop, which bishop is bad bishop. And also, we will be able to find ways to make our bishop better than our opponents, or just make it better for ourselves. Okay, all right. So that's all for today's lesson. I hope you have a wonderful week ahead, right? I will be around as mentioned. If you have any questions about the lesson, just let me know and I will answer you through WhatsApp. Okay, so that's all for today. Bye bye. See you in the next class.